Hey guys, so I want to make this video simply because of the fact of I touch a lot of guns, I see a lot of guns, and I just see the quality of parts you guys use on your guns, and the quality of parts that you guys are using is going to vary, and it varies on what the gun is used for. For a self-defense pistol, this is my everyday carry gun. I will talk about what these are because although they look like Glocks, they're not really Glocks. You guys need to put the utmost highest quality parts in a duty gun, competition gun, duty gun, carry gun, in your guns. And I just had this problem the other day. So I don't know if YouTube's gonna like this, but the striker spring and the recoil spring. When you change your recoil spring, let's say to a lighter spring. So for instance, if you're running a stock Glock striker spring, which I think is 6 pounds, 5-6 pounds, and you go down in spring weight on your recoil spring, let's say 13 pounds. Most guys that run comps, the Radian Afterburner, Parker Mount Machine comp, any comp that you're throwing on your gun, it is highly recommended that you change the recoil spring from lighter. A stock Glock 19 uses a 20 pound and 18 pound recoil spring. A stock Glock 17 is using a 17 pound spring. So when you do ported or comp, it's recommended that you go down lower. Start at 15, do some testing, put some rounds through it, see how it cycles. Because I can assure you that when you are shooting your gun and you leave, these manufacturers say like, oh yeah, manufactured around the OEM recoil spring. Yes, it might be manufactured around the OEM recoil spring, but what they don't tell you is the ammo that they were using while doing that. And we all know there's all different types of grainage, plus P, 124, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So a lot of these manufacturers are using plus P and 124 to test their guns. And what happens is when you go to that 115 Blazer, and I'm using Blazer very specifically because Blazer has an extremely low power factor, 129, 130, 131, same thing with Federal Syntec 124, same thing with New Republic. Also, don't shoot plated bullets out of your comp imported guns. It literally says on the Blazer box, don't put through comp imported guns. We just don't know how to read directions. As I was saying, your slide reciprocation is going to slow down. And if the spring is too heavy, what's going to happen is your gun is not going to reciprocate all the way, and you're going to get stovepipes, or you're going to get failure to feed, and that's because the spring weight is too heavy. Now, when you go down in spring weight, you have to change this spring. Because what happens is this spring, when you go to pull the trigger, is too heavy and will push the slide back. And I've had this happen. I just fixed this problem. And I'm sure many of you experience this problem now. When you go to pull the trigger, the slide will move like this. And that's because the striker spring the sear is pulling the spring back. And as you could probably see, it might do it a little bit. No, it doesn't do it. This gun has so many rounds on it that it doesn't even matter. And the spring that I'm using is powerful enough to override the lightweight striker that I'm using. But when you do that, and that happens, you can get an out of battery round because the slide will not go forward enough It'll go like that and it'll sit like that. And then when you go to pull the trigger, you're gonna get a slide that lunges, will lunge forward like that. And it might work, it might not, but you shouldn't risk that firing your gun while it's out of battery, because that's how you blow your gun up. Essentially, you'll blow barrel up, you blow your whole gun up, and that's the end of your gun. And I'm pretty sure a manufacturer is not gonna warranty that because you were messing around with springs. Now, I say change this, change that. And I understand a lot of people like to change stuff on their guns, as do I. This is a competition gun, and this gun has been messed with so many different times that I know it works now. I've spent hundreds of dollars on internal parts trying to get this gun to be the way I want it. This gun has all regular stock springs in it. I actually even increased the spring weight on the plunger, the recoil, the extractor plunger. I put a plus 20 from ISME, and to get better extraction, so that way the extractor doesn't slip off the case. And the striker is a OEM 5-pound striker spring, and the extractor is OEM Glock. I don't really mess with this gun. I have a trigger from Tactical Trigger because this is not a Glock, and I had to get a trigger for this. So even the trigger spring is an extra power trigger spring for Glock. So when I go to pull the trigger, it's not super light. The channel safety, hold on, let me do this off of camera. I'll do it with this gun. And we're back. So the channel safety spring plunger is lightened even on my carry gun, so your trigger feels nice and smooth when you're pulling it. The smoothness that causes is that initial movement in your trigger, is the take up. When you actually pull the trigger and the brake that you feel, the crisp glassness, is the connector right here. There are different connectors. There are many companies that do them. It's very important that you go with the right one. I will say that. I'm not going to tell you which ones to buy because they all break and do different things, but you need to find one that matches your trigger. That's all I'll say. But as I was saying, this spring right here is highly dependent on this spring. And when you're messing with your guns, you need to make sure that the system is all complete. You just can't change this spring without changing this spring, or change this spring without changing this spring. And another thing is, when you play with your striker spring, you need to be able to make sure that this spring right here is rated for the spring that's on the striker. If you go to a heavyweight striker spring or an extra power, which I have in here, this is just an OEM Glock spring. If you go to an extra power spring, the striker spring also needs to be heavier, because if you have a heavy trigger spring and a light striker spring, you're going to wear the striker spring out prematurely. There's a lot of stress on that, holding that. The spring is compressed when the trigger is cocked. So I recommend that for range guns and competition guns, because you want a lighter trigger, that you stick with the OEM Glock trigger spring. Now you ask me, what is this? Because this is not a Glock. This started out as an OZ9 and has since been made into a just a Frankenstein part gun. So as you can see, this has a Spring Code dual recoil system. It's a dual recoil spring. I have an 11-pound recoil spring on here because of this massive comp. And I use a 4-pound or 4.5-pound striker spring. I use both depending on how I feel that day or what the gun's doing. And then I lightened channel safety spring. This is a Tactical trigger made by Tactical Trigger. Great guy, awesome triggers. I only recommend these triggers. This gun has one too, and I know the shoes look a little different. This is a shoeless Tactical trigger. You could see that there is a pin right here. That pin is to keep the bar down, polished, whatever. There's a adjustment pin right here for take up, and the trigger breaks like glass. It is one of the best, if not the best Glock trigger for feel that you could buy. I wanted to make this video because I just see a lot of BS, and a lot of you guys put crap in your guns and expect it to work. And these guns are made to save your life, especially guns that we carry. And when you guys put crappy springs in your guns or fail to maintenance your springs, they break and they don't work. The recoil spring, every 5,000 rounds. And it's not even, you don't even have to shoot the gun. If you rack the slide with your hand, that's one reciprocation of the slide and one compression cycle of the spring. That counts towards spring usage. And you only get about 5,000 rounds out of these springs. Now, I may get a little more out of the Springco spring because it's chrome, moly, heat-treated spring, so you could probably get 10,000 rounds out of it. But you need to be able to change these springs. And these springs too, like striker springs, every 5,000 rounds. Extractor, every 10,000 rounds. Plunger spring, and I know a lot of you guys don't even shoot that much. A lot of you guys don't even shoot 1,000 rounds a year. The plunger spring, every 5,000 rounds. The trigger spring, every 10,000 rounds. Every time that slide reciprocates, if you pull it back and pull the trigger, that's a reciprocation. That's wear on the spring. You guys need to be changing this stuff. I see it all the time. Competing, guys don't take care of the guns and then they fail and they don't work. Especially on carry guns. You guys need to keep up with maintenance and make sure your guns work. Back to what I was saying about this. So this is just basically a metal frame Glock, essentially. It's not a Glock frame, but it takes Glock slides and barrels and Glock internal parts and trigger parts. But this is an Icarus frame, a Zev steel chassis, Wilson barrel, Norso slide, SRO, and then I silicon carbide my grip myself. So I took hockey tape, not to ruin the finish. So when you want to change the grit, because it does wear out, hockey tape over the aluminum, and just provides extra grip while you're shooting. And then I hockey tape the rest of it where I get like high contact areas with my thumb and make it a little softer shooting. And then I put a extended slide release because why not? Mag release is from Hive Tactical. Great mag release if you're competing. It's very extended, as you can see. And then on my regular carry gun, I have a normal magazine release, so I don't touch it. But I'm going to do another video on this because this is even far more important. So I just wanted to make this video about springs because I just see way too many people's guns failing because you guys like to play with your guns, and I get it, as do I, but you got to find something that works and shoots well and is reliable. Because as time goes on, as I'm competing, I want a more reliable gun, and it's unfortunate that Zev uses a proprietary extraction pocket here, and you have to use their plunger to make the gun work reliably, and even with their plunger, it doesn't even work reliably. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Ever since Zev became owned by Silencer Co., it has gone downhill, and it's just unfortunate. Zev was a great company before the takeover, and it's just unfortunate that the brand has gone downhill. You actually can't even buy this anymore. You only can buy the shorter versions. But as you can see, I like green. Green's an amazing color. But that's all I have for the Glocks. I'm gonna make a separate video right now for AR stuff because I'm just sick of seeing, we'll call them PSA ARs. And I know everyone's like, oh my God, I have a PSA and they're great. They're not. But, all right, we'll do video number 2 in a second. So let me stop this one.